go ahead and do a mic check and just verify that you can. Yeah, the levels look good.
Looking good.
Yeah.
Hello. All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very special episode of WENMINT. I'm the machinist. CMDR is here too, and we are sitting down today with the one and only Charles Hoskinson. Thank you very much, sir, for joining us.
So good to be here.
Excellent. It is good to be here. They actually, IOHK set us up with a wonderful boardroom here at Caesar's Palace, and Rare Evo just kicked off. You had a wonderful opening speech there, the keynote. I was definitely looking forward to it, and I think everyone's pretty excited. There's going to be a long line for playing Doom.
Yeah, I need to hurry up and get over there, actually. I've been practicing, so I'm looking forward to it. Yeah.
Well, this is the dry run, the death match that we're going to have in October, $100,000 prize. So
yeah. Cardano, the summit, right?
Yeah, the Cardano Summit in Dubai.
I'm going to have to make sure to get there.
Guys got to come.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I have to figure out how to crack a paper wallet, though I don't think it's possible. But it would be nice. Then I could buy a house.
If some kid figures it out, I want to meet him. Breaking PGP would be a pretty monumental accomplishment, and pay $1 million for that. I'm pretty happy.
$1 million USD in that wallet.
Yeah, USDM. Yeah. So we talked to the Moneta guys. We say, can we mint $1 million USDM? He's like, hell yeah. I said, all right. We put it on.
Looks like I might go back to the hotel room after this interview and just spend my life doing that for the rest of the weekend.
All right, good luck with that.
Yeah, just cancel everything else and go for it.
Chat GPT, that shit. Hey, Chat GPT, how do I break a PGP
yeah,
encryption?
I'm sure Chat GPT can't help me.
Well, don't they have 4 now or 5? Chat GPT.
They're testing. 6? They're testing 5 right now.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, maybe 5 can handle. Anyway, most interviews with you, Charles, are people want to talk about what's happening with Cardano. Right, what's happening right now, what's next, we're on the cutting edge, right, we're going to break out everything going on. Pretty much most of the keynote was all the amazing things going on with Cardano, but a lot of people, I think, don't know too much about the man behind the blockchain and kind of how Cardano started before anyone knew what it was but you. What first got you into crypto in the first place?
Well, I was a bit of an academic nomad. When I was growing up, I wanted to be a doctor because my dad's a doctor, my brother became a doctor, uncle's a doctor, grandfather's a doctor. So there's a little bit of a trend there. And they're like, so when you become doctor? And so I did all the things you were supposed to do to become a physician. I cleaned operating rooms. I did the MT thing and became a certified pharmacy technician. Okay, took a little class for that and took a little test with the PTCB. And then, I was taking classes in that direction, and it was just utterly demoralizing because every time I would talk to a physician over the age of 50, they would say, like, whatever you do, don't become a doctor. It's a horrible thing. Really? Yeah, because the system is so broken. You want to be a physician to help people and cure people, and you end up spending most of your time dealing with bureaucracy and paperwork, and then you see how the system actively works against people. For example, you'll have a homeless person get admitted, they go to the ER or something like that, and they have bad teeth and it's caused an infection. So they'll clean up the infection, but they won't solve the bad teeth problem. So then you let them go, and then they get terribly sick, and then they get admitted again, and now their jaw's infected, and they have to get a major surgery, or you could have just paid $200 in dental care. So apparently we'll cover the ER visit and these types of things, but we won't pay the $200 in dental care. And as a physician, if you see these types of things again and again, they get deeply demoralizing. Also just how medicine operates. In many cases, some of the recommended cares are not helpful, or in some cases counterproductive to the health of the patient, and yet you're told that's standard of care and you have to go and do it. So in other words, it doesn't value free thinking, and the system just keeps getting worse and worse. And I said, boy, that'd be pretty terrible to go into that and every day just be angry on how things are and wake up at 50 being like, why did I do this? So I was also really good at mathematics, and I enjoyed computer science and mathematics. And so I transferred from Metro State to CU Boulder because I graduated very early from high school. I was homeschooled. I graduated at 15, and I started in community college, which was really tough because I was a great student, 4.0, graduated at 18 there. But I was the youngest guy in every classroom because I'm like this 15, then 16, and 17-year-old kid. And everybody's like 30, and they're like, when were you born? 1987. Like, excuse me, 77? No, 87. It's like, okay, what you doing here, junior? And so it was really tough because I was homeschooled my whole life. So I didn't go to a proper high school or middle school or anything. So my first real socialization was literally being a college student. So that was insanely hard.
Just to clarify, you were a college student at 15
That's
and
right.
16 and 17 years
Yep.
old?
Yeah, at Front Range Community College. And so then I transferred to Metro, and I just floundered because I just didn't want to be a doctor. And so then eventually I went to CU Boulder and did this combined master's bachelor's thing. And I was in it for a long time, and I took just a ton of different classes, everything from ancient Greek philosophy to psychology courses. I did stuff in all kinds of advanced math. And I really enjoyed mathematics. But the problem with mathematics is I often like saying it's a cheaper thing for society to deal with autistic people than institutionalize them, right? You know, it's like if you have people that are just really on the spectrum and they have no social skills and no ability to integrate normally into society, instead of trying to manage that, well, you just make them mathematicians. And
You're a walking abacus now. Go.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not to be pejorative or anything, but I mean, there's just a lot of people in that field that they go very, very, very deep. And you see it with Gregory Perelman or Terry Tao, or, you see it with Alexander Grothendieck, who literally became a hermit and, just walked around in his pajamas all day. And Kurt Gödel went so crazy, he starved to death because he thought people were poisoning him. And what's so crazy about this is that this is also a place for some of the most brilliant people in the world. Like, there are no people more brilliant than mathematicians. There's always a rivalry between physics and math, but math really it goes unlimited. There's no way to win. No matter how brilliant you are, eventually you reach a depth that you can't operate at, and then you go crazy if you go any deeper than that. And what's so crazy about it is that you have this profound rationalism that people have, yet they get profoundly irrational. Like Kurt Gödel literally proved that math is not complete. Gödel's incompleteness theorem, which is just insane. It basically says no matter how many axioms you add and how much work you do, there's like holes in mathematics you can't fill. And imagine, like, in your 20s, basically breaking math, like finding the cheat codes and just destroying the entire field of math, being like, no matter how hard you work, you can't solve this puzzle. They're like, God damn. So he's the most logical guy around. He was good friends with Einstein, and he would walk with him every day at Princeton Institute of Advanced Studies. And when Einstein was explaining relativity, Gödel found an alternative representation of it just on his spare time because he was that smart. So he's the most logical guy you'll ever meet. In fact, when he became a citizen, they said, "Do you swear to uphold the Constitution?" And he's like, "I can't, because it's an illogical document." And he explained where all the logical fallacies are in the Constitution. And Einstein yelled at him in German. He's like, "Shut the fuck up."
Just sign the paper.
Yeah, but then also at the same time, he's a paranoid schizophrenic, and that's why he thought people were chasing him and poisoning his food and all these other things.
Is that what A Beautiful Mind was based off?
No, that was John Nash, another paranoid schizophrenic. You see the trend here in mathematics?
He actually lost his ability to understand mathematics at that level when he started taking medication.
In some respects, yeah, but he still did a lot of foundational work. And so it's a bit of a dreary field in that there's a lot of ego, there's a lot of rivalry, and a lot of people go there and they lose touch with humanity, lose touch with people. And it's also an industry where it's very difficult to collaborate with people. It's an industry where after you get to 3 to 5 collaborators, you can't really get beyond that because you can't verify other people's math. You don't have the time, right? If you have 45 people working on a giant project, it's like you can't check all the proofs and check all the work. So it's almost like writing software where you're never allowed to run the software, and your way of checking software is literally to read the source code. Like, how big of a program could you write where that would make sense? And that's literally where mathematics is at. So I was a bit perturbed by that, but I really loved a lot of the applications of it. Like, I took cryptography classes and all kinds of things. And Su-Young Yi was the professor I took this crypto class from. And it was magical to see how you could use like integer factorization for building a crypto system. That was the basis of RSA. And if you know the factorization, that's the private key, and the multiplication of it is the public key. And you say, wow, that's so incredible. Like you can build a whole system of secure communication over this clever little hack that Eddie Shamir and Ron Rivas and Adelman discovered in like 1976 or something like that. So it's so crazy. So right around that same time, I was also being radicalized in the Austrian Economics School. I joined the Ron Paul campaign a little earlier, and I kept with it. So I read things from Murray Rothbard and Ludwig von Mises and these other guys, and I started liking first principles sound money. I said, you can't trust governments, you can't trust institutions. They need constraints to prevent them from going crazy. And if you remove sound money from the equation, what ends up happening is that people will always eventually debase the money. Like, for example, the United States, when we had private monies in the 19th century, there was hundreds of them, and every single one of them failed. Because banks would issue money out in the West, and, you had all kinds of little systems people would put together, and it got too tempted to go fractional reserve with the thing. Because you realize, wait a minute here, if I say there's, 1 ounce of gold for every certificate, the reality is the vast majority of people won't redeem the gold, so I can print 10 times as many certificates and nobody will know the difference, and I get the buying power as if I had 10 times as much gold. You see, and governments, once they figure this out for political reasons, it's the way to go, because your alternative is to raise taxes. So that's why since the creation of the Federal Reserve in the early 1910s, we've lost 98% of our buying power, because the temptation has just been so strong. So I got radicalized from that. And I did software stuff, and I was doing cryptography stuff, and I really enjoyed doing math stuff. But the big issue was that I was unemployable, because I wasn't passionate about anything, like I didn't want to build rockets or, go start a company or something. And then crypto came around, and I said to myself, wow, this is an intersection of all the things I love. There's a deep math part, there's a deep computer science part, and there's an economics part. And everybody's like me in that they hate the government, and we're all poor, and we don't make any money. We're like all OGs, and this is great. And it was an innocent time. We were trading Bitcoin on spreadsheets, and, you could, just every time anybody would mention anything about Bitcoin, there was a Reddit. People would be like so proud. They'd be like, Flavor Flav said something about Bitcoin. Oh my God. Wow, this is so incredible. We're going to make it. It's like, it's some random homeless guy had a Bitcoin sign. Yeah, all right. Yeah, look at that sign. Yeah, it's so cool. Right. And so there was a camaraderie and a shared misery there. Like the first Bitcoin conference, nobody had any money. So it's like when you wanted coffee, you had to go to Starbucks and buy it yourself. Like they couldn't afford to give free coffee to people. And that's like the bedrock of a basic conference. So I really enjoyed that part of it. And it was so cool because everybody was so philosophical, and you have these deep conversations about how does this connect to the cypherpunk movement of the 1980s, and the whole Earth catalog, and how we're going to rewrite the world economy, and what is sound money, and these types of things. And actually a lot of the early developments of Bitcoin were attempting to bring libertarians into Bitcoin. Like Mike Caldwell, for example, created those Casisis coins, and he created it for Ron Paul, because Ron Paul says, I only like gold and silver. And so Mike's like, well, if I make a gold coin and I put some Bitcoin on it, well, then Ron will like Bitcoin, because it's, he at least likes the coin, right? Yeah. And he even did a video on YouTube showing it off. And eventually, I think it was the Secret Service or somebody said, hey, you can't print those. And, so he stopped making them. And that was way back in the day, like 2011, 2012 or something like that. So it was a lot of fun. And there's no coincidence that the early pioneers like Eric Voorhees and Roger Ver and Andreas Antonopoulos were cut from that same cloth. They had that radical agenda, just like me. Covered a lot of ground there.
Yeah, no. So we're at Bitcoin now. You're at conferences with all these folks.
Buying your own coffee.
Buying your own coffee from Starbucks.
We've gotten to a point where people do give us coffee.
So
yeah, very good coffee.
Yeah, that's not bad.
Like everybody in their life kind of has like this pivotal moment, this catalyst point where yeah, that's right. I just said that, where they decide, what direction that they want to go with their life. So when you started thinking about working on Ethereum and everything like that, was there like a pivotal moment, like that light bulb, that switch came on that said that, I want to build this, I want this to be my career, my life, my future? Do you have one of those moments?
Well, I entered the cryptocurrency space through education. I created a class called Bitcoin, or How I Learned to Stop Worrying and Love Crypto, because I was a big Peter Sellers fan, Dr. Strangelove. Stop worrying and love the bomb. Slim Pickens riding the bomb down. I still want to die that way. That is the way to go out, riding the atomic bomb to oblivion. It's a fun death. But anyway, I was a big Peter Sellers fan. So I created a class. I met everybody from it, and it gave me an opportunity to network kind of into starting some things. And the first project I worked on was not Ethereum; it was BitShares. And there we were trying to solve two very specific problems that are still issues today. One was about exchanges, because at the time Mt. Gox was very shaky, and a lot of people believed that Mt. Gox was eventually going to collapse, and it did. So we wanted to build something like a decentralized exchange. Ooh,
Imagine that.
yeah, imagine that, right? But this was 2013, man. Like DEXs, that's not a thing. And then the other thing that that was a big problem is that you can't make Bitcoin true money because you can't do credit with it and it's not value stable. One of the properties of money is that you should be able to predict its value over a period of time. And if you can't do that, then you can't do loans. Because if I lend you something like, would you take a deal? Hey guys, I'll give you 10 Bitcoin now and you pay me back 11 Bitcoin December 31st, 2025. Who the fuck knows where that's going to go? You know, if we believe the flow and stock model, it could be $250,000, or Kamala could get elected and declare a holy war on crypto, and you know we could be $25,000 Bitcoin or $10 Bitcoin. Who knows?
That's a conversation in and of itself.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't know, but that's the point. You can't predict it. But when you buy a house, when you buy a car, when you buy property, what do? You get a 5-year loan, 15-year loan, 25-year loan. The only reason that makes sense is that year after year after year, there's some degree of predictability in the arc of money. Even if it decays predictably, like 3% or 4%. It doesn't go 65% suddenly and then gain 65% value. So we wanted to build an algorithmic stable coin. And the idea there was that you use something that's fluid and unpredictable to algorithmically construct something that is relatively pegged. So we spent years trying to work on that on and off, and Dan Larimer came up with some ideas for it. So I partnered with him, and and we tried to do that. And BitShares never really was a big success, but I learned a huge amount about how to launch a cryptocurrency, what that ecosystem is about, who those people are, and ultimately, a lot of the people who were connected to that project went on to do different things. Like the BitShares people, some of them created MakerDAO. And it's still around, and so a few people know that's there. And a lot of the concepts of DEXs, well, they worked their way into Uniswap and their projects. So at least that was fun. Ethereum was more like it was so easy and so simple to understand, hard to do. So the thing that made the internet wasn't just the web browser; it was the web browser with JavaScript. So the web browser gave you an easy way to look at stuff. JavaScript gave you a way to interact with stuff. So you went from here's my page of cats to you can play a cat and run around Catland and do all kinds of stuff. Wearing a nice cat shirt, so I have to do cat stuff.
An amazing.
Your shirt is awesome,
it's a nice
by the
cat
way.
shirt.
Yeah.
I love cats. But anyway, the internet got good when JavaScript came. So analogously, when you look at cryptocurrencies, it got good when we got programmability, because then you could do DeFi and you could do metaverses and NFTs and you could do oracles and projects, and people were actually building stuff. I mean, the Bitcoin days, the early days were like, so how long do you want to hold your Bitcoin for? Forever or double forever? This is literally, literally the conversations you'd have. And our big innovations were things like vanity addresses, where you'd mine an address, and because if you generate randomly addresses, eventually you can start generating addresses that have characters you want. So you can actually mine an address with characters. So it's like, oh, I invented this new thing for vanity address. Wow, look at that. His address starts with cock. Wow, yeah, look at that. I want to send some Bitcoin to that cock address. It's like, that's incredible,
That used to be through email, right? Wasn't that like you held your Bitcoin in your email account or something like that?
Oh, you still can. You just take your wallet, you can PGP encrypt it, and then you put it into your Gmail account or whatever, and good luck breaking that. It's a really good way of actually backing up stuff. I know security professors, I don't know about that. It's like, fuck you, man. PGP is okay.
I'm looking forward to that, actually.
Yeah.
I'm going to attack that wallet today.
You got to go for it. You got to go for it.
I'm not even going to try.
I'm not even a tech guy, but I'm still going to try.
The best I can do with that is actually eat the paper.
Well, I hate to tell you this, but we did coat the paper with a very strong laxative.
Really?
Yeah, we predicted this. We predicted this.
I think he's more excited now, actually. So when did you come to the realization that like Ethereum wasn't going to work and that you needed to kind of step away and start to do your own thing?
Well, being kicked out of it really did help. But
let's talk about let's talk about that a little bit. Like how did that happen?
You guys know the fucking story. It's been 10 years. Everybody asks about it. Lara writes about it. I mean, at the end of the day, there's 8 founders, and here's my best advice to any young entrepreneur who's doing something. Every startup is the same way. You have a lot of passion, you have a lot of great ideas, and then you start bringing a crew together. The challenge is at that moment, you typically forget to do things like founder agreement, strong contracts, and also good organizational chart of who does what, where, who's in charge, these types of things. 8 co-equal founders, how do you make a decision? You can't. And so what Vitalik rightfully did is he made a decision to consolidate and cut what he thought was dead weight. He has a very low opinion of me. So he got rid of me. He got rid of Amir Shatrit. Shortly thereafter, Joe Lubin left. Anthony Diorio left. Eventually, he came into conflict with Gavin Wood. Gavin Wood left. Jeff Wiltshire left. Even Mihai, his friend he started Bitcoin Magazine, is no longer there. So of the 8, there's one that remains, Vitalik. There you go. And Jeff went and made video games. As you know, Joe created Consensus. Anthony created Decentral, created the Jax wallet, all these things. He's doing AI now. Gavin created Polkadot, a competing product. And I created Input Output. And that's what happens, so you got to pick a winner. And it was his project. He came up with it. So he had every right to make a decision who he wanted in the room and how to make that happen. And I have deep philosophical differences. I believe in things like liquid non-custodial staking. He does not. I believe in things like on-chain governance. He does not. I believe in things like deflationary monetary policy. He doesn't really. I believe that code is law. We saw that with Ethereum Classic, and he does not. So, he was 19, I was 25. Are we going to have these deep philosophical conversations? Right in the beginning, it's like that song, "Hey, I just met you, and this is crazy, but call me maybe." I mean, it's like, guys, we're kids, and we weren't intellectually, emotionally, or experience-wise had the wisdom necessary to run a project at a scale of $500 billion. It's just not going to happen. And then, what the Ethereum people like to do is they like to rewrite the narrative that every single founder hates me and I was pushed out and I'm an evil, narcissistic sociopath. We've never accomplished anything at all. And I'm riding Ethereum's coattails for all the things that I've done. And it's so disingenuous and fantasy-filled and just disgusting at its core. And that's the part that really just doesn't, it makes me hate the space sometimes, that people can get away with just lying every single day. We're different people. It's okay to be different people.
Right.
We've written 211 academic papers. There's over 10,000 citations. We have labs from Stanford all the way to Tokyo Institute of Technology and every place in between. 168 scientists work on this project. We wrote original code, and we know it's original because nobody was stupid enough to write the code in Haskell. We did, okay? And we had to become patrons of the motherfucking language, found the Haskell Foundation, evolved the entire language to be fit for purpose for this, work on Agda to Haskell, all kinds of these types of things. Ethereum sure as hell fucking didn't do that. I know for a fact they didn't do that. The other thing is we were the first to formalize with Grigori Rushu, the Ethereum virtual machine with K. There's so many things we did, and they ride on our coattails in certain respects, and that's fine. We never get any credit for any of it, but it is what it is. And that's okay if everybody's just friendly and copacetic, but they're not. And that's the problem with the origin stories of Ethereum. They're the victors, and so they wrote the history. And they wrote it in a way that is deeply unfair, deeply offensive, and deeply hurtful. And they'll never apologize. They'll never make that nice. And I'm just supposed to accept it, pucker up, and move on. It's a little hard to, because anytime we come into contact with people that are indoctrinated with this story, they ascribe me with these characteristics, and all you can do is just keep moving forward. We were at the VIP party last night, went and met everybody, talked to people. You see the speech I just did. I'm a very accessible person. I collaborate with people. Apparently, I'm not in prison. If I was a narcissistic sociopath, pathological, lying, horrible human being, why is Jay Kwan building Luna and Alex, doing Celsius and SBF doing FTX and these types of things? But Charles Hoskinson's not in prison. After 10 fucking years, God damn it, 10 fucking years. If I was these things, maybe, just maybe, I would have committed a crime because it's so insanely easy to do so in this industry. Yeah. We have to self-regulate, and the only thing you have is character and integrity to keep people from not doing that stuff. Do they ever mention that? No. And then when they can't win on that because they don't have the facts, what do? They lie about the ecosystem. They say it's a ghost chain. There's no traffic. Nobody's here. I guess we're just talking to ourselves. You guys don't exist. I actually became a mathematician. I'm just in my office babbling to myself right now. This is the absurdity of it. Then you show them, like the bankless people. It's so genuinely unfair. They say, come on the show. I say, I tell you what, I'll give you any questions you want to ask as long as you want to do it, but you got to do it here. Why? Because then you at least can see that there's an ecosystem and there's real people, because you guys keep lying. I'm sorry, I don't go to conferences, except for the time you went to Solana's conference. Yeah, okay. So if you're going to lie, at least lie well, and this is just who these people are.
Yeah, so they want to get you into their area and like ambush you, basically.
And I don't mind that. I was at Web Summit, and I was sitting on stage with a guy who calls Bitcoin a Ponzi scheme, and we're all operating with illegal securities. And it's like, it was like the standard, when did you stop beating your wife? Question. The very first question. And then there's other institutions. Like I was at Consensus in 2022. We sponsored that conference. We had this beautiful booth. We spent over $1 million on the booth, and big sponsor of the Consensus conference. And then they said, we'd like to interview. I said, sure. So I had a fireside chat with the editor-in-chief. First question he asked was, why are you working with a genocidal dictator in Ethiopia? After we sponsored the conference and all this stuff. Okay. And it was a 15-minute panel. I crushed him. And then he's like, well, we have to wrap up now. I said, I could be here all day. Do you guys want to keep going? The audience is like, yeah, let's go. And he's like, I'm sorry, we don't have the time. We have to move on. I was like, this is not Game of Thrones season 8, man. We got the time. We're good. Come on, let's go. And so that's our industry in a nutshell. It's pay to play. It's very narrative based. It's not fact based. It's not integrity based. Which unfortunately hurts the industry's ability to go mainstream and to absorb into things, because all these petty rivalries, no real people actually care. No real people actually get involved in them. All they see is a bunch of children screaming at each other, kind of like do I like Kirk or do I like Picard at a Star Trek convention? And you're like, who the fuck are these people? They're weird and they should shower. And unfortunately, that's where we're at, as an industry. And they ask, well, why is the price not going up? It's you. Stop doing this and let's start unifying.
I do have to say, with all of that said, and there's fudders in the space, there's always going to be fudders. People who are just bored. They feel shitty about themselves. They say what they say. There is a huge convention center full of people that believe in that integrity, that believe honor is the way to do this. And I think, just hearing you speak about yourself and your ideology, it's very apparent to not just us, but everyone in there and everyone listening, that this chain is almost a reflection. How it runs is a reflection of how you think being a good person or a good man should be, right? Be honest, be true to your word. And that's kind of it. There doesn't have to be a lot of rules. You just do it right the first time and you don't have to worry about it again, right?
Yeah.
And I do think Cardano in the long run, no matter what, it's going to pull ahead because of that.
Yeah. The thing that bugs me is like, if anybody actually came here and met you and sat down and had a conversation with you and like sees the way that like you will literally stand up on stage for an hour and a half and wait for, a 1 mile line of people to come and meet you and shake your hand one by one, like who in their right mind could actually see something like that in person and think like this guy's a sociopath? It's just, nobody cares enough to actually do their own research or come and see it for themselves. It's like you said, like you invited them out here to come to the convention and interview you here, and they just wanted to push their narrative.
It destroys their preconceptions that they have to hold on to, or else they know they're failing compared to this.
It doesn't matter though, because like you're building everything the right way, and you don't need all the KOLs, you don't need all the influencers, you don't need all the bullshit media and all that stuff, because the tech is going to speak for itself. Governments are going to be coming and looking to vote on blockchain. You're going to have when midnight comes out, you're going to have privacy chain for businesses so that they can transact without having to worry about their IPs being stolen or something like that. So, you're doing everything the right way. And I don't pay attention to the haters, and I don't really think you should waste your time doing that either. So
you can play Doom right now. What is it, 35 frames per second, and every frame is a transaction? Are you fucking kidding me? That's fantastic.
And just to show you like how they lie, so when we did the initial benchmarks for Hydra, it showed that the peak throughput of heads sits around 1,000 TPS or so. And this was the initial simulations that Phil Kant ran, because everything we do is very rigorous. And so we ran simulations, and we were trying to get a sense of where this could scale. We had, at the time, about 1,000 stake pool operators. And so we said, well, if every operator runs ahead, your maximum theoretical throughput's about 1 million TPS. So that goes out there. All these podcasters take it and they say, oh, that means Cardano can do 1 million TPS. Okay, well, that's not what we said. But they ran with it. And then when Hydra's beta came out and we started playing with it on mainnet, they said, well, it's not 1 million TPS, therefore you lied. And you guys are scammers and these types of things.
Well, we also never said that.
Exactly. And so you said something we didn't say. You're held us accountable for the thing we didn't say. And now apparently we're bad actors. Well, Hydra, you're right to point out, we're running Doom on it. If you have concurrent players, 30,000 concurrent players, 35 frames per second transaction per frame, that is 1 million TPS.
Hell yeah.
You know, and so there's a path to do that with the technology, and it's not a path in 10 years, it's a path in 6 months to a year. So that's what we're doing. We're building in that direction, and then you open this up because it's a great technical showcase for why Hydra was built. It's one of 4 different scalability paths we're pursuing, and we're the only ecosystem pursuing aggressively as first-class citizens all 4 of those scalability paths. So then people say, well, Cardano doesn't scale. It's like, not only do we know how to scale, we invented the science of scaling. It's like, this is something that if you look at our papers, they're all cited for this reason. And we've been doing this since 2015. We've been thinking diligently about how do you build a system that preserves things that are very important, like determinism and predictable pricing and these types of things, but at the same time has a path for layer 2 scaling, a path for layer 1 scaling, a path for rollups, a path for domain-specific applications like partner chains. And I just love the roadmap. It's so beautiful and it's so elegant, and it just makes sense for how it works. People just lie, though. And then when you show it to them, then it's got to be a trick. It can't exist. And then eventually they accept it. They say, yes, but this other ecosystem's also done this thing. So you don't play to the crowd. You know, what you do is you just keep building with integrity, because you look decade by decade and say, if we keep this rate of growth, we're going to wake up in 2035 and we're going to have 20 million people or 30 million people in the ecosystem. And then we're going to wake up in 2045 and we're going to have 500 million people in the ecosystem. And if you want to be world changing for the economic, political, and social systems, then you just have to focus on that growth rate. And you just have to focus on bringing people in. That's why I go cross industry. I was just at an AI conference, AI 4 or 5,000 people, one of the largest AI conferences in the United States. Very few blockchain people. There are only 2 blockchain presentations there at AI4. It's not a blockchain conference. And I had a keynote. And then I also went to World of Concrete. Okay, why concrete? Concrete is the second most used substance in the world. Water is number 1. Okay, concrete is everywhere, and there are millions of people around the world in that industry. Talk about blockchain and concrete. Bring these things together. That'll bring millions of normal people into the cryptocurrency ecosystem. They won't even know they're here. They're doing something. So you got to diversify. These conferences are so competitive, but it's just at the end of the day, it's the same bathtub. And what Solana's doing and Ethereum's doing, other people's are moving water from one side of the bathtub to the other side of the bathtub. It's the same fucking bathtub, man. You're not going to make an ocean this way. You have to go and find other sources of water and go around. So that's one of the things that makes Cardano unique, is that we bring everyday people in and get them to care about the industry. In fact, the statistic I'm most proud of is that the majority of people who've entered cryptocurrency have entered in from Bitcoin. The second group of people, the second blockchain is Cardano, not Ethereum or Solana. So we've brought in many, many people who are first-time crypto users. It's the first time that they've entered in. Something was collected back in 2021. So what does it tell you? It's like, this is the gateway to the entire ecosystem. And it makes sense because both Bitcoin and Cardano actually have principles. They matter. They have integrity at the core of the system.
My first blockchain that I ever used was Cardano, and I never left. I decided, I said, you know what? I'm going to start I didn't even know what a podcast was at the time. Like, I think it's like a radio show. And I haven't left yet. So, but I'm not here for making good decisions. No.
Me neither.
We're talking about all the different paths to scalability, right? Hydra, everything. I mean, there's some amazing shit on that convention floor. When Cardano was just a thought in your head, right? When nobody else knew what this was, you were just playing with the idea and decided to go that path. Is this where you thought we would be?
I had a rough conception. Like, I wrote why Cardano, and most of that has come true, and the parts that haven't were bad ideas. And so what I did is I took that and I gave it to professional computer scientists who spent their life thinking about these things. And I didn't pretend like I had a PhD in computer science and 500 publications. I just hired the guy with the PhD in computer science and 500 publications and said, hey, what do you think? And because they'd spent their life doing things and making mistakes, they could pre-design a system and avoid enormous mistakes in the design of that system. So like, for example, the design of programming languages. I talked to Phil Wadler. He invented Haskell in 1985. He's been around the block. He added stuff into Java and to Go and all these other languages. So he's one of the most cited computer scientists in the world. And he just got made a member of the Royal Society, the same organization that, Sir Isaac Newton was a member of, and all these other people. So as an American, to do that is a pretty remarkable thing, because and actually Phil wrote the first online computer game in history. He was an undergrad at Stanford, and as a summer gig, he got a job at Vint Cerf's lab when Vint was creating the internet. And so they asked Phil, they said, hey, we need to test the links between here and San Jose. Can you create some sort of program to verify that the links are working? He said, oh, sure. And he wrote a computer game to test it. So it was an online game, and you could play with a guy at San Jose and a guy at Stanford, and it would work. So that just gives you a sense of like the legacy that goes into the thinking of Cardano. It's like there's the front guy, Charles Hoskinson, but just like Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos or Musk, there's a million people you don't see that are behind them. And those are the people who actually figure out how to get the rockets into space and to make the iPhone so magical and, to make Windows work and so forth. The job as a leader is to inspire them, to get the big ideas, to quote General Petraeus. You have to get the big ideas, right. So the big ideas were things like deterministic extended UTXO style accounting, big idea. Why? Because we know that layer 2 and off-chain is going to be just as important as on-chain. You have an account system, it's a nightmare figuring out how to get things back and forth, and you end up introducing a lot of centralization into the system in the process of doing that. UTXO just works. It's beautiful. So that's a big idea. Liquid non-custodial staking. It's a big idea. It's hard to do, but we did it. And now Vitalik is trying to figure out a way to bolt it onto Ethereum and say, I can't believe it's not Cardano, and we told them this because they were working at this longer than us. And for years and years and years, we, occasionally published some things, and they were quite dismissive of all of our research. Okay, well, they fucked themselves. And so we got a lot of big ideas right. The partner chains model is another example of that, especially when paired with dual tokenomics and Minotaur. So that is the job of the leader, is to know the big ideas and then to know who to hire to go and execute those big ideas, get them inspired, get them incentivized, get them passionate. And over the arc of time, you can accomplish great things. The other job of the leader is to communicate the big ideas concisely and precisely and get people excited about them and get people acquainted with these things. So multi-touch, why do we need that? Well, Steve Jobs was really good at explaining it. And then suddenly you just got it. You're like, yeah, because I look at a map and or a photo and I want to do this, right? For the people listening, I'm like doing a pinching motion with my fingers. Okay, that's pretty simple, right? But you need multi-touch for that. And how many times have you brought up a photo and zoomed in on a photo? How many times have you brought up a map and zoomed in on a map? That alone justifies the feature. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to understand that. Now, it's really fucking hard in practice for software to do that. Especially when you go from a mouse cursor to a fingertip. A mouse cursor is like the tip of a pen, and look how thick and wide a finger is. Right. Software is not designed for a click surface like that. So how do you figure that out, right? And so it's enormously complicated. The consumer doesn't care, nor should they care, but they figured it out. And that's the genius of good leadership, is having the capacity to explain why do we care about these things. So why do we care about high TPS? Is it because we want high TPS? No, it's because certain things in life require that. Global settlement systems, voting systems, video games, social networks, all these types of things. Okay, so how do we talk about those things in a way that gets people excited of why you would want to build those decentralized versus centralized? And what ends up happening is people live long enough. It's almost like the Joker, right? With Two-Face. It's like you eventually live long enough to be the villain, So you live long enough and eventually you realize why centralization sucks. So nobody cared about social network centralization in 2010. Then COVID comes around and everybody's getting deplatformed for saying COVID's made in a lab. And then suddenly, like, all these people are like, fuck centralization and censorship. Goddamn Mark Zuckerberg. Rah! And Musk buys Twitter. And then everybody thinks he's this incredible hero. And then he starts, deplatforming a few people. And then they're like, I thought you believe in free speech, bro. What's going on? And so because the reality is, no matter who you love or what they do, your politics are eventually going to be different at some juncture. And when they act on their politics, what happens is you get angry with them. I'm in a hinterland because I endorsed RFK. So the MAGA people hate me and the Democrats hate me. It's like I'm alone, man, out there. But that's the thing. That's why decentralization is so powerful, because then there's not a person. It's not a face. It's a protocol. You see, so you get people in love with these ideas, the big ideas, and then they're like, well, when do I get it? And I said, well, here's how you get it. This is the best way to get it. Okay, good. And you just manage expectations. The thing we failed the most on with Cardano, because I was young on social media, is that we didn't do a good job, I think, of managing expectations of the rollout and how long things would take. First, because we made mistakes in how we rolled things out, and they were very costly and time-consuming mistakes. I cannot tell you how many sleepless nights I had in 2018, 2019, 2020, just pushing and pushing and pushing and grinding. It was horrible to get the protocols where they needed to be, to get staking out, to get smart contracts out, and how many things we really wanted to have, and architecturally how many missteps we made, and these types of things. And that's what happens. You have to have the dogged resilience to get out. But unfortunately, that translates to it ships a little later.
Right.
And then people say, because of that, you failed, you lied, you're an evil person, and rah, rah, rah. But in the long term, nobody remembers, because here's the example I give all the time. Everybody misremembers the iPhone. When Steve Jobs was out there in 2007 holding it up, it didn't have 3G and it didn't have an app store. But everybody remembers that it had 3G and an app store.
Right.
But that came at a later time, right? So in the long arc of history, when you recall things, you tend to forget, like, there wasn't staking in Cardano when we launched. Oh, that's right. I just thought we always had it, right? And then eventually, long enough, there wasn't programmability with Cardano when it first came out. We didn't have smart contracts. Well, now we do. It's like, oh yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. Just, you always think it's there. You misremember it. VoIP is another great example. I remember growing up as a kid, you'd see like Alien and all these other movies, and what are they doing? They're video calling. Remember RoboCop? They have the video call. Yeah. Okay. And that's fantasy, right? And now everybody does video calls. And like, when was your first video call? Do you remember?
I don't know. It couldn't have been that. I don't know. Maybe. I have no idea. Yeah.
Exactly.
No clue.
What about you? Do you remember?
No, I don't think I can recall when. I mean, I've had smartphones for at least like 10 years ago, right?
But now it's ubiquitous,
like
right?
when
It
was
just seems normal.
Yeah, when was Facebook able to let you?
It's Skype and Facebook.
Right.
Exactly. You just can't remember. And this was so revolutionary. The first time you did it, you were like, oh my God, it's the future. I remember doing it with my mom. She was like, wow. And now it's so integrated, you can't even remember the first time you did it. That's technology in a nutshell. It's just the same with cell phones. When you first saw the iPhone, you're like, my God, that thing is so amazing. And it was. But now, would you use an iPhone 1? Oh, God, no. Oh, no. It's the worst experience of all time, right? And you look at the iPhones today, they're 1,000 times more powerful and have all these amazing capabilities. And people, they're like, yeah, what else you got? I remember the first iPhone came out, there's giant lines outside the Apple store, and people were just like, come on, man, I need a hit of that iPhone, man. And nowadays, it's like the new iPhone comes out. Is that out? I haven't upgraded yet. Is it? Yeah, I'll just wait next year, right?
Yeah.
And these things like a fucking titanium in them, tungsten, sapphire lenses, 27 cameras, and, goddamn like trillion transistors and all this. It's so crazy, the technology that's inside these phones. It's unbelievable. It makes the iPhone look like a toy, and people don't care. Right. So that's the other thing you got to remember about products. When people get too proud of something, the technology alone never gets you there, and people have an amnesia about product development. And that amnesia ultimately forces you to have to constantly reinvent yourself and push forward. So everything changes. So you have a network effect for Bitcoin and Ethereum and for now Solana. I'm old enough to remember when Solana nearly died because FTX collapsed. And now it's back.
Didn't they almost die last week, too?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You just take it out, blow the cartridge. But that's the thing. It's like stuff goes way up, stuff goes way down. And if you don't believe me, pull out your BlackBerry, open up your Internet Explorer, go to Yahoo and search for your MySpace page and log into your AOL email.
Tom was my first friend.
Exactly. And then you can post about it on your MySpace page,
I love sound.
Exactly. And so obviously all that's facetious, but like how many of those had 1 billion customers? And how many of those seem to be unstoppable and they were the standard and now they're just all gone? That's technology in a nutshell. So things change so quickly. The only thing that doesn't change is integrity and brand and the relationships that people have with each other. There's a cult-like loyalty with Apple, and people will do whatever they tell them to do. I remember when they went from Lightning to USB-C, and everybody's like, "Oh, I'm so glad that Apple has chosen to innovate and go to USB-C." It's like, bitch, we've been on USB-C for 10 years, and Android, God damn it. It's like, your iPad was on USB-C. Yeah, but it wasn't the time for the iPhone. It wasn't the time. But now is the time. Apple has decided. The arrogance of that company, when they have their AI presentation, they don't call it artificial intelligence. They call AI Apple intelligence.
Yeah.
Apple.
You son of a bitch. But it works.
Yeah.
I remember the NFL made a deal with Microsoft, and this was one of my favorite stories. And NFL was like, okay, pay us $1 billion, and you get like Surface and all of our games, and all the teams have to use Microsoft Surface and stuff. And they had one of the announcers, I think it was John Madden or something like that. And it's like, oh yeah, the NFL is moving from paper, and they got this new tablet deal. You see all those iPads they have on the side of the street. I just felt so bad for Microsoft, where like this old 70-year-old guy who's announcing the football game, he just can't conceive that there's a difference between iPad and everything else. And so he's calling a Microsoft Surface, and they paid $1 billion for the marketing a fucking iPad. And it's like, that's just so soul destroying. The Microsoft marketing manager, he's just like pouring some whiskey and like,
tear rolling down his
Looking
cheek.
at his revolver in the
yeah,
drawer.
exactly right. We call that a Wyoming retirement package. You get a single bullet, a revolver, and a bottle of Jack Daniels.
That's insane. I'm gonna state for the record, MySpace is the best social media app that ever came out. Like, the customization on MySpace was amazing. If you knew how to do even like the slightest bit of code, you could just completely build your own page. You could put your music on there. Like, all of your photos and videos, like people were promoting themselves as like music artists on there, putting all their own like personal music on there. And a lot of people actually made it from MySpace just from that. Like, Facebook.
You still use MySpace, don't you?
We're recorded. I don't care. Facebook sucks. Twitter sucks. Bring back MySpace. Tom, where are you, man? Please
But
bring
what
back
about
MySpace.
Zuckerberg 3.0? Have you seen the rebranding? He's wearing like the loose shirts and the chains.
And surfing.
now.
Yeah. Dude, Zuck's he looks like he's trying to like zen out, man. I don't know. He's like, I
He
think
got a
he's like
software
practicing
update, man.
jujitsu and
He went from data to like bro. He's gonna be on Joe Rogan. Actually, I think he was on Joe Rogan, was he?
Hey, you know who was on Joe Rogan? RFK.
Oh, yeah?
And he did a fantastic interview on Joe Rogan. If anyone out there has any questions about RFK, please go listen to the Joe Rogan podcast, because he just let him talk. Didn't interrupt him, didn't walk on him. He just let him go. And he really is an amazing candidate. So you're not alone by backing him.
Or just come to Vegas tomorrow and be here for the fireside chat with Charles.
Yeah. RFK is gonna be here.
How long's that going to run for?
I've been haggling back and forth with them, and we're trying to figure it out. I think what's going to end up happening is it'll be 30 minutes, and he's going to have to dial in because we couldn't get the flights where they needed to be. I offered my jet, but apparently that's like a donation to the campaign, so they can't take it. And so then and the issue is he's now with a Secret Service detail, so it's not like 3 guys go; it's like a whole city.
Well, it took him long enough.
I know, it fucking took a long time. So it's brutal because you're buying like half a plane when you travel with all the campaign staff and everything like that. And this was a bit of a short notice, so he's going to have to probably dial in for it, which is fine because we'll get the online syndication for the whole thing. And there's some good questions there that I think really showcase that he's a thinking man's candidate. And it's just a brilliant guy, and it's a great honor to know him. And I remember my grandparents; they were huge JFK fans. My grandmother's Italian Catholic, so she has a picture of the Pope, and she had a picture of JFK. It's like, there you go, the Pope John the 23rd. He was the Pope back then, and that's just you did it. So they were fanatically loyal to JFK, his uncle, and it was a real sad time when he got shot in '63. And it was very traumatic for that community. So, this is a guy who grew up with a front row seat to American politics since 1961, at the highest level. Dad was almost president, got killed probably by the government. Uncle was president, got killed probably by the government. He witnessed the Martin Luther King be assassinated, all the peril of the 60s. All the peril of the 70s, was an environmentalist lawyer in the 80s and fought some of the largest companies and cleaned up New York. I guess he doesn't live in New York, even though he spent his entire life there, according
Yeah.
to Democrats.
Yeah, his landlord
16 different
said that.
residences or something like that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just nonsense.
It's just nonsense. It's just one of those things where, it's parody at this point, what our politics have become and the crap that they shovel into people's
And it's
throats.
apparent parody.
Yes.
Anyone that sees this knows that this is just nonsense.
It's kabuki.
But I guess people just are okay with that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
People just want their narratives to be like verified, right? Like whatever they think, feel, and believe, as long as the media is telling them or their candidate of choice is telling them that what they believe is real, then they're just going to follow that instead of actually paying attention to facts and information. And I mean, like, look at the campaigns, right? Like the Harris campaign is doing nothing but attacking Trump and JD Vance, and the Trump campaign is literally doing nothing
he
but
said he fucked a couch.
the man.
I mean, this is 2024. It's like,
Yeah.
don't go furniture shopping. I mean, like, what is going on? I don't understand anymore. And I guess we got the horse semen with Waltz, and there we go.
I don't know.
Is it so weird to want a candidate who actually like talks about the issues though?
Yeah, I
Is it
know.
really?
And especially with blockchain, because he actually, if any other candidate, if they bring up blockchain, it's for votes.
Yes.
Kennedy, he wasn't only at the Bitcoin conference. Everyone
He
talked
also
about
went
Trump's
to
speech.
F. Denver as well.
Right.
Yeah.
And he was there last year at
Yeah.
the Bitcoin conference as well when he wasn't running. He's
Wow.
been a holder for a long time, and he believes in using blockchain to keep our government honest.
Yeah,
And
1031 transactions and all these things. It's just a lot of common sense in the policy. And he's at the beginning of the conversation. And a guy like that bringing the industry together, we get a law passed, and there would no longer be Scary Gary or any of these types of things.
He is scary. Good
We
God.
love you, Gary.
What?
I'm joking.
You're canceled.
I'm joking.
It's fake news.
Fake news. Some I say are good people.
Is Chelsea going to hurt us if you're late?
Chelsea in the office. We got to get going.
All right.
Yeah, we heard you had a hard stop.
Yeah. Got to go
Yeah.
talk to the World Mobile guys.
Right. Well, thank you so much for taking time to chat with us, Charles. This really has been amazing.
Become a D-Rep, join Intersect, and if you're around, participate in Constitutional Workshop. We got a government to build, everybody.
Hell yeah.
Cheers.